Welcome to the Rock is George podcast. I'm your host, George Dionne. Thank you for tuning in. Be sure to hit like, follow, or subscribe on the platform that you're listening to us on. You can also check out my work at the loudest.com on the planet, knac.com, for exclusive hard rock and heavy metal interviews, live show coverage, album reviews, and more. My guest for episode 210 is guitarist Andy Scott of the UK rock and roll act Sweet. Sweet is set to release their final studio album on September 20th. It's called Full Circle. It comes out on Metalville Records. They're going to be following up its release with a final tour. And here's Andy Scott of Sweet to tell you more about it. If I knew absolutely nothing about Sweet, how would you describe the band's music to me?
Well, the early days, raucous and but well organized. It would be like before the term heavy metal had been kind of being given its own genre. We were edging on that kind of sound, probably more Deep Purple, Led Zeppelin, and Black Sabbath, but with the vocals of bands like the Hollies and the Beach Boys, so it was a real one of the bands that we used to admire back then was Vanilla Fudge, and I used to love Spirit, the American band Spirit, Randy California. There were a lot of that kind of stuff. I think we were trying to blend a lot of different genres into one, but as long as it had a stinger of a chorus that we could put harmony to and some guitar riffs, we'd be happy.
Right. And I think over the years, you've kind of refined that sound to a more, I guess, what they call melodic rock sound.
Yeah, this latest album, Full Circle, we've gone kind of back to that, the more pop orientated side of things. But I don't think that's a bad thing. I think that there's a lot of people who know me and have known me a long time, and quite a few new people who I haven't known for very long. And almost to a man, they've come back to me and gone, well, I wasn't quite expecting that kind of sing-along pop album, but it's great. They've one of the guys said to me, he said, I can't stop my wife from singing one of the songs on there. So she's heard the album as he's played it in the background, and there she is singing along.
Couldn't ask for a better endorsement, I don't think. And
no.
Full Circle comes out on September 20th through Metalville Records. It's had a bit of a journey. It started out in 2019. You guys started writing this album, and then obviously got derailed because of a worldwide shutdown. But you did release an album in the interim called Isolation Boulevard, which is right behind me over there, which was a good substitute, I think. Why did you make the decision just to not go ahead and finish out the studio album here?
I think you need to be together when you're approaching new material. We had a couple of tracks. I'd resurrected a track from an album that we released over 20 years ago, a song that had basically got buried and forgotten. I think it was probably the label. It's one of these things that it goes on a back burner, and so I resurrected the song Everything, and then there was another song that I'd started to write and never finished, and that's how the album started. Well, we need a new album. Well, here's two songs that we can. That was the other song was Changes, and I thought, well, we've got a starting point here. We'd also had a bit of a reshuffle in the band back in 2019 where we hadn't been together that long, barely a year, and I did not want to lose the enthusiasm. So rather than think about trying to write songs at distance and people sending you stuff and me going, no, spending half the time doing what we're doing, I was able to have a couple of people, that I could interact with or could even come and we could sit one side of a table with a, and we started to put, I said, I need to find drum tracks because they're going to be the problem. And so we went back looking at outtakes of some of the, because I said, the best way to do this is to do our set, whatever we do playing live, find drum tracks that will work with all those songs, Fox on the Run, Ballroom Blitz. There must be tracks floating about. And we found all the tracks that we needed. I think we ended up basically cutting and pasting a fair bit of one of the tracks. I can't remember which one. And then it was just a matter of building, from there. And that was fun because then everybody could get involved because, yes, the song, put your bass parts down and send them to me. And then we got to the point where we could have 6 people together. All of a sudden they relaxed some of the rules. So that's when we started to do some backing vocals and some finite things that we wanted to put on the recordings. And it came together, considering we were never in the same room, fairly quickly. But I wanted it to sound like we were in the same room. That's why we left the endings the way that they were. We didn't try and tidy too much up. So it sounds like it's an ending that just comes to an end. It's like as if you're in the studio and you've gone, right, that'll do. And I think it worked. A lot of people liked the album. It got great reviews.
So when the time came, I'm assuming that work on Full Circle began once everything was relaxed. You guys could get together, get back in a room, and start writing again.
Yeah, kind of. 2022 was the pickup point for real. I'd had some more treatment during the pandemic, in fact, for my cancer, which was a bit scary. The hospital had to send, because luckily I have a private insurance, but they sent a car with a driver, like a chauffeured car. And I got in the back. He wore gloves and, all this stuff. I then put the gloves on and the mask. And then we get to the hospital. There's 6 people waiting, but we're all in cubicles, waiting to go for our next bout of whatever it is. And then I'm taken home. And this happened over a period of 2 or 3 weeks. I was having some radiotherapy. And I just got to thinking that you can't just let this moment go. You've got to find something to do and as I said, that's where the Isolation Boulevard thing came up. And, because I know that there were, I live in the middle of nowhere. And quite frankly, the policing of stuff like that out here, I'm pretty sure there was still a couple of people nipping in the back door of the pub, that kind of thing. I can't swear to that, but, it's that kind of an area where the guys that are there for opening time would be needing some refreshment, if you know what I mean. So, and also because of places like hospitals and food outlets, there's got to still be some delivery guys and all that kind of stuff. So, the fact is that I'm not sure now. I was at the time, but I'm not sure now whether it would have made any difference. Whether locking us down or not. I just don't know. I was very lucky. My wife was very lucky. We never got COVID until last year. And I'm thinking, it's supposed to be done. Why have I now got it? But I got it because my immune system isn't maybe so good. I was in hospital for a week, but luckily it wasn't one of these horrible scenes that you do see, from that period. And I certainly don't want to decry anybody who went through all the nasties, but it's when something like that happens and the World Health has no answer to it, it's a disgraceful situation.
Are you in remission from cancer treatments?
Remission's a hard one because I've hit stage 4 now, but it doesn't mean. See, when I used to think of stage 4, I'm thinking, okay, last rites, all that. But as he said it's down to how you react to the treatment, and he said we'll keep it going for as long as you do, and the things that I'm taking, there are some side effects, of course there are, and I still want to have a beer from time to time. I don't want to become, completely, teetotal, as they say. It's not prohibition yet, Right. So, but it doesn't mean to say I have to have six. I'm just happy to have one, and not every day. And there's also the factor of, you got to eat well. Well, yeah, I do understand that, but one of the things that Britain enjoys is fish and chips, and chips is not something that I probably should be eating, but once a week, once every 2 weeks, maybe, So I think it's a matter of listening and not being, too overboard with anything, and just basically being boring and mundane. When I go out with the band, I hear stories about how the younger element are still having a drink at 1 a.m, whereas we've done our gig at 8:30 through till 10, and I'm in a car back to the hotel by 10:30, and I'm asleep at 11. And they're still backstage at the gig at midnight. And I have to say I don't miss it, because I have had to listen to that stuff sober once or twice, because there isn't a car that will get me back, because the hotel's too far. And when you sit there for an hour and listen to other people, you then realize you don't want to be part of that, because the stuff that gets talked about is not always of the quality of the Oxford Debating Society.
True. So I would imagine that putting Full Circle together was important for you with what was going on in your life from a health standpoint, because it takes your mind off of that. It's something that you love. It's better than just sitting there and festering on what's going on, right?
Yeah, I've got a wonderful missus, my wife, Jane. We love our dog. And we've luckily got a bit of land out the back that we can let him run. I love fishing. I go fly fishing, as often as, when I say as often as I can. If I can get out 3 times a year on the River Test, I'm happy. I can't walk for a long way these days. So I will do, and fly fishing, when you're fishing a river, you could walk for a mile. So I tend to make a start, find somewhere to fish, sit down for 10 minutes, and then do another little walk, sit down again, fish for 10 minutes, so you can get through your day. And usually I see people changing their flies a lot, Usually in a river, there's a couple of flies that will work. And just because it hasn't taken there, it might take there, it might take there. You don't have to keep trying to look through a spyglass to tie this stupid little fly on, So, when I've done that, it's time to go back and have a bit of lunch, and then do the same again in the afternoon. And, it's probably the only exercise I get, other than trying to walk in an airport. And I'm very happy when the buggy comes along and they give me a lift these days.
Are these health factors what's been put into play that this is going to be your last studio album and this is going to be your farewell tour?
The farewell tour thing, it kind of makes sense. We haven't done long tours now for 2 or 3 years, since before the pandemic, in fact. And what the tours we're doing in Germany in October, end of September through in October, are 3 or 4 gigs, 5 gigs maybe, a week off, 2 or 3, 4 gigs, week off, and another 2 or 3 or 4 gigs. So it's not like touring. I could no longer pack a case and go away for 3 months and lie on a bus. Can't do it. It won't be done ever again. We're only doing 6 shows in the UK. Now, you go all the way to Australia, which we're doing this year, to play on the Rock the Boat thing out of Sydney. And then we're doing something like 12 dates in Australia. You can't go all that way and just do 3 gigs and go home. and then come back and do another 3 gigs. It's just not feasible. So what we've done with this promoter, we're doing like 3 or 4 gigs, 2 or 3 gigs, and then having 2 days off, because Australia is a big place. You need to get from Brisbane down to Adelaide. You need a day to fly and then a day off. So the 12 gigs are probably going to take us something like 23 days to do, but it's the right way. Otherwise, you might be sending me back a different way from sitting on a business seat on Qantas or something. So I'm trying to look after myself and look after the band at the same time.
So back to this being your final album, it's the full circle. It's a great album, and I think that it's going to be well received. But in a day and age that we're living in now, it is tough to sell new music. So is that the factor in why this is going to be the last studio album?
Now, this is a moot point. It depends, because some of my guys have written some good songs for this album. If they continue to write a few good tracks and I come up with the odd one, why say never? Why say never? Yes, in my head, but already I'm getting the feeling that the Germans are definitely pulling their fingers out, and this album might actually go in their chart. I don't know. They were trying to explain to me that by, it's all to do with clicks and stuff like this. Nonsense to me. It used to be you made an album, you put it in the shop, and people bought it. Just because somebody has 1 million clicks, it means nothing to me. That could be robots, couldn't it? I don't know.
True.
Yeah.
Could be your label clicking on it 20 times, right?
Oh, it could be. Could be. Yes, I hadn't thought of that. Is that why we're not being paid so much?
That could be it.
And it wouldn't surprise me in the future where AI starts to make a really big impact on things that are being released, because I've already heard some things that there are a couple of apps out there, and you tell it the kind of song that you want, and it comes back, and some lyrics, and it comes back with a completed song. And you go, what? And it sounds like Metallica, or it sounds like, very, very weird. Whoever's put the algorithm together is either a genius or he knows something. Maybe he is one of these human robot crossovers.
So you mentioned that everybody contributes songs to the album. Are there particular songs that you wrote that are on Full Circle?
Yeah, it's me and the co-producer Tom. We wrote Circus. I wrote Changes and Destination Hanover. I also wrote Fire in My Heart. And Full Circle. That's me and Tom again. It's almost like a full circle where you've got Circus in the circus ring at the beginning, and then you've got the Full Circle song at the end. And I think maybe I'd been watching Game of Thrones when I started to write those lyrics. But they are quite poignant. They could relate to anything. They, even modern day, the way that people and countries relate to each other. It's a funny old world these days.
Back to live performances, I saw that Sweet played Wacken Open Air Festival. You got the full show on your social medias. It looks like you guys were having a great time there. Is this the first time that you played an event of this capacity?
Oh, no, we've played Wacken before, but never on one of the main stages like that. We virtually opened the festival, and I think they did it on purpose. We've normally played in one of the really big tents. We played with Uriah Heep one year, and a few other bands another year, like The Damned, and the Australian band Rose Tattoo. We've had some good things happen there, but this year they said, no, we want you on the main stage, opening up 3 PM or something. And we went on there and we killed it. It was fantastic. the audience were ready, and when you look out there at them singing along to all the songs, and when you tell them to put your hands in the air and to sing, they put their hands in the air. Honestly, it was a remarkable show, and I think that the song that they featured is one of the last songs that we play. Is was it the Ballroom Blitz that they showed on there? Yeah, I certainly said to someone it sounded better like that than it did actually on the stage. So I'm very pleased. Because with these festivals, you get thrown on there a little bit as quick as possible. So you don't have a hell of a lot of time to sort everything out. You're on there and so you do your best.
Even though these upcoming shows are considered you guys as a band winding down, would you ever consider, or have you thought about Sweet continuing on without any original members, say like Foreigner?
Well, it's a moot point, this, because we're having a lot of success, as I said, with the lineup that we've got. If this album puts more on the map, like Isolation Boulevard did, it's not beyond the realms. I don't know what Foreigner are doing. Is Mick Jones doing some shows, but not all? Or is he doing none anymore?
None.
He's not doing any. Right. Well, the difficulty here right now is I'm still capable, and I hope somebody has the ability and the bottle to come up to me and say, I think it's time to stop now, Andy, because that's when it's going to be difficult. Maybe there's a way of feeding this beast before it happens. And maybe you've got to try a couple of things. And for example, for my health, the next time they want us to go to, somewhere in the far-flung, like Hungary, or where I'm not saying it's not important, but it's a big festival, and they do it without me, and we see what happens. Or you make an announcement and you say to people in like Japan, the band are going to come without me. I mean, I'm not sure whether Japan would be the right place, but maybe even say, right, Andy's going to do the 2 shows at the weekend, but the band are going to be doing the 2 shows in the middle of the week without him in Germany. And we're going to make sure that the 2 shows without me are in the country areas where we don't often go to. So you'll bring people out for the gig, and then you'll hopefully start getting some proper feedback for people saying, well, the band was great, and it's one of these things you'll never know until you try it. If you'd have asked me this 10 years ago, I would have said absolutely not. But we're in a different era right now. It's maybe 15 years ago, I'd have said absolutely not. But, you get a little bit older, you realize that your recovery rate is not what it was. Even doing 3 shows in a row now on a tour and having to travel between the gigs, as long as they're no more than 3 or 4 hours, I'm okay. But if I have to get on a flight and fly from Hamburg to Munich and then do a gig that night, ain't going to be as good as the Hamburg gig. So it's always better to have days off. I now understand why Springsteen and McCartney have weeks off, never mind, but then they're playing to 50,000 people most nights. So,
well, it shows you the importance and the impact of your music, that the music has become bigger than the band itself.
It's nice to think like that. Yeah, I think that would be. Also, we realized that until a lot of people, until they use Fox on the Run as the kind of promo music for the Guardians of the Galaxy 2, we didn't realize that people knew the songs, but they'd forgotten who the band was. I mean, that happens,
Those are all the questions I have for you today, Andy.
Right.
The new Sweet album is Full Circle. It comes out on September 20th through Metalville Records. Fantastic album. I wish you the best of luck with it.
Thank you, man. Thank you so much.
Once again, I want to thank Andy Scott of Sweet for coming on the Rock is George podcast. Be sure to check out their latest album, Full Circle, out September 20th through Metalville Records. Head over to your favorite music streaming platform, take a listen to what's available. If you like what you hear, buy a physical copy, support the artist. For all things Sweet, head over to their official Facebook page /The Sweet Official. I also want to thank Nathan T. Burke and Metalville Records for making this interview possible. You've been great. I've been George Dionne. Discover your next favorite artist on the Rock is George podcast.